Hey guys, a little entrepreneur video. I want to talk to you about the entrepreneur cycle or the entrepreneur's business cycle. So in a nutshell, entrepreneurs are people who are inventing new businesses from scratch. And because of that, there are going to be many mistakes, many ups and downs. When you go work for somebody, this is kind of the progress, slowly, a little bit more money, a little bit more prestige with time. But most people are going to hit the ceiling. Whereas the entrepreneur's lifestyle is more like this. You're down here, as opposed to starting up here, which is an employee. You're down here, but all of a sudden it goes boom, and then we go boom, and then we go boom, boom. So entrepreneur life cycle is very topsy-turvy, a lot of high highs and low lows. So when you become an entrepreneur, first you have to recognize that there's going to be good times and bad times. So you have to prepare for that mentally, psychologically, and also financially. When you are an entrepreneur, you have to be much more careful about how you manage your money and how you manage your trajectory in terms of your career. Entrepreneurs have to be constantly on the lookout for new opportunities, and always an entrepreneur has to be also aware of the fact that your current business could crash and burn. It happens, and so there are these cycles. It's a little nerve-wracking, I think, for people, especially in the beginning when you're in the entrepreneur life cycle, especially if you're used to having a steady job. But if you do a few things as I teach in my entrepreneur course, number one, have a big stash of FU money. And number two, always be prospecting for new opportunities. I talk about this in my freelancer course as well. If you just be prepared in accepting that things that once work might not work a few years down the road, or they could, if you get something really nicely settled, it could last for many years, but things could change. And also, there's going to be a lot of failures in the very beginning, especially when you're first learning the game of being an entrepreneur. It is there's a lot of trial and error in that, because when you're inventing your own business from scratch, it's unpredictable. It's unpredictable about what is going to work, what is not going to work. That's just the way it goes. This is very different from, say, somebody who gets a franchise. So let's say you get a McDonald's franchise or a Wendy's franchise or some established business where you buy the whole business, the business model. You're buying a piece of that marketing, let's say with McDonald's. I'll use McDonald's as an example. There's less ebbs and flows there. You're more of an operator in that situation. Less of an entrepreneur, more of an operator. What do I mean? Well, if you buy a franchise at McDonald's, as an example, the whole business model is laid out for you. How you set up your store, the pricing, the products, the whole workflow within the store. That's what you're paying for when you buy a franchise. You're buying all that and a piece of that marketing as well. You're buying the name brand recognition. So it's much less creative. Actually, I don't think there's much creativity at all when you buy a franchise. And there's less freedom. In comparison, entrepreneurs have total freedom. But when you buy a franchise, you're actually very restricted in terms of what you can do. Because if you buy a McDonald's franchise, you have to live up to the standards that McDonald's puts out. You have to operate in accordance to their policies, because they don't want some rogue McDonald's store to ruin the reputation of all the other McDonald's. So it's very restrictive. When you buy a franchise, there's a lot of upside potential in terms you can make a lot more money, of course, than being an employee, but there's a huge cost to buying McDonald's these days. But there's no creativity. And there's also, when you own a McDonald's, there's a limit. A store can earn a certain amount of money, and that's it. It could be a lot, and people have made fortunes owning McDonald's, as an example. Any franchise, really. But entrepreneurs, the sky is the limit. But because the sky is the limit, with that ultimate flexibility and potential, you have that huge volatility in the cash flow. So you have to be, again, to reiterate, entrepreneurs have to, because they invent their business, they have to be much more careful about how they manage their cash flows. You have to be always looking out for new opportunities. You have to have a very flexible mind so you can adjust the ship, adjust that business, and pivot to a different business model or a different product or a different workflow, depending on what the market tells you. So I hope that helps. Just a little perspective about what it's like to be an entrepreneur. When you're a freelancer, by the way, it's not as volatile because well, you have to watch my freelance course if you want to get into that. Freelancing is not as volatile as being a pure entrepreneur coming up with some new idea, new business product from scratch. Anyway, some nuance there I won't get into here. I hope this video is helpful. Bye-bye.